8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural Banking Technology Forum CX Summit. We're so glad to have everyone here digitally. My name is Patrika Elise, and I'll be your MC for the next hour of the show. We've got some incredible content planned for you today. I just have a few key items to run through before we get started. This conference, as you've probably noticed, runs on the SwapCard event platform. Everything you need to have an amazing summit experience can be found right here. First, let's talk about networking. In order to find your connection request, meeting request, and conversations with other attendees, simply click on the My Event button, which you can find here. By clicking into this feature, you'll be able to view your networking conversations and connection requests, and see your meetings and meeting requests. Now, let's talk about the technology exhibits. The BTF CX Summit features incredible technology products and services that were hand-selected by the BTF team. Each one of these companies has the ability to help you push your company forward. Take a second to click around the virtual booths and explore what they have to offer. Inside, you can find more information about each company, as well as helpful white papers and other downloadables. And that's it. We think you'll find SwapCard very intuitive and easy to use. Now that you're familiar with the SwapCard platform and how to use it, let the BTF CX Summit begin. I'll now welcome Tina Nakrelli, the Director of BTF, to introduce today's agenda and the first speaker.
Thank you, Patrika, and welcome everybody to our inaugural Banking Technology Forum CX Summit. As Patrika mentioned, I'm Tina Nakrelli, the Director of BTF. I'm excited to have you join us, and I hope you'll find value over the next 2 days. Here at BTF, we strive to create the most successful peer-to-peer learning environment, focusing on the intersection of banking technology and customer experience. As tech advances at an exponential rate, we believe it to be of critical importance to create forums for knowledge sharing so that all organizations can responsibly embrace and benefit from these developments. We're excited to have you as a critical part of this mission. As you watch talks today and tomorrow, remember that in many cases, the speakers themselves will be around in real time to answer any questions you have. If you'd like to ask a question, use the chat box feature on the side of the page. Now, let me introduce you to our first session today, Unwrapping the Post-Pandemic Digital Transformation Strategy for CX. We've gathered together an amazing group of bank professionals for a far-reaching discussion of how the pandemic has altered and accelerated the digital transformation in banking, and what banks are doing to adapt to the new expectations of customers. Moderated by Paul Mullins, the head of Customer, Wealth, and Private Banking at HSBC. Paul is an international banker with experience in leading change in both emerging and mature markets with the customer at the heart of the journey. And he will lead our conversation with panelists from RBC, BMO, JPMorgan Chase, and Citi. Paul, welcome to the BTF CX Summit. We're excited to have you join us.
Hi, everyone. That's an awful long sentence to try to replicate in terms of what this panel represents, but a super hot topic, I think, for us all. So I'm Paul Mullins. I'm the head of customer for HSBC in the US. I've worked in a number of different markets globally, but very much focused around delivering value for customer and making those products and propositions work. And it's great to be doing that in the US in my present role. If I could just ask everybody to briefly introduce themselves. Jyoti?
Sure, yeah, happy to go. First of all, thanks everyone for being here and to the group for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this topic. By way of quick introductions, I'm at Citi in our digital payments organization, where I look after wallets and e-commerce and all of the partnerships that fall within that, our bill payment solution, as well as me-to-me transfers. So very excited to have the conversation today.
Thank you. Kaaren?
Sure. My name is Kaaren Hanson, and I'm the Chief Design Officer for Chase. And prior to Chase, I actually spent quite a bit of time at Wells Fargo, Facebook, and then also Intuit. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to be speaking about this very important topic.
Thanks, Kaaren. Maja?
Hello, and lovely to join you all for this panel. My name is Maja Neable. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Personal and Business Banking at BMO Financial Group. Before BMO, I spent time in the telco industries in the US, Canada, and Europe. And before that, with Microsoft and Expedia in digital product development. And really very happy to be here today on this important topic.
Thanks, Maja. So let's head into the first question. So what has been the biggest impact of COVID-19 on your CX strategy? So maybe with payments being such an important part of this story, Jyoti, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a great journey in the payment space in general. But of course, when COVID happened and everyone was forced to be home, we quickly found all of ourselves in a situation where everything had to be done digitally, right? Branches were closed, you couldn't go in. And so we've really seen a major shift in usage of many of our digital products. And even as we look at trends of what will happen out of this, that change is going to continue. For example, there are people predicting that there'll be a 60% increase in the use of mobile and digital wallets over the next 4 years, with cash potentially dropping in usage by about 20 to 25%. And so with that in itself, we're seeing that change, and where we're seeing it's very important to make it easy for our customers to get their cards into those channels for spend. We saw right through the pandemic, again, as silly as it may sound, people don't want to touch anything. And so the idea of using your Apple Pay or any digital wallet to make a payment in a grocery store has that incremental value of literally not having to hand your card or cash to anyone. And we've definitely seen that shift. The other thing we're seeing that I think will continue is customers are getting more comfortable doing transactions online that they didn't see or feel as comfortable or a necessity prior to the pandemic, whether it's paying their credit card bills or paying, other checks. Mobile check deposit grew quite a bit through the pandemic instead of going to a branch. And over time, we're hoping that a lot of this habit sticks, right? From, in the sense that we believe that we're actually giving our customers value in the digital space. The other thing that's going to be interesting to watch, and I think will start being the point of the question around what is the biggest impact, is how much will this shift remain, right? We don't know if it's a blip and therefore, in 2022, everyone's going to go back. I don't think that's the case. And I think our job in digital, in customer experience, is continuing to build experiences that are clean, simple, transparent, and really continue to build trust, that you trust, using your digital channel to pay your bill, that your payment will go through, because there's still people who believe if I go to a branch and pay my bill or send a wire, I'm more comfortable that way. I know it's going to work. And so it's really our job to continue to make our customers to feel comfortable in that space. So Paul, I'll leave it there. And obviously I'm sure other folks have thoughts, but happy to continue the dialogue.
Yeah, thanks, Jyoti. I mean, there's no doubt, certainly as we've experienced it, some of our kind of skeptics on digital customers have transformed as a result of, need. And, like you said, how will that last? Won't it last? I think it is here to stay, but I'm sure others have got some great views. I mean, Kaaren, any thoughts on your side?
Yeah, what I would say is we're seeing the exact same thing with more and more contactless payments. We're also seeing a big shift in the use of remote mobile deposit capture. It used to be about 30% of our checks were done through remote deposit capture. Now it's about 40%. That is holding true. we have made some adjustments to help people feel more comfortable with that as well. For example, we actually increased the capability such that you can get immediate use of the money in most cases from depositing that check remotely, as opposed to needing to go to an ATM or a branch to do that. But I would say another big insight for us during COVID was, the tremendous sense of urgency and the tremendous sense of purpose that we all had, particularly in the beginning when we didn't know what was happening. My sister is a small business owner. She owns a veterinary studio out in Chicago, Illinois. And I went right through that journey with her. And those, paycheck protection program loans were so important. And because of the timing in which it came, everybody was running as fast as they could to do right by the customers, which also made us really think deeply about simplicity and clear language, because people were so anxious during that period of time. Right. And I am very proud to say that at JPMorgan Chase, we ended up being the #1 provider of those loans, both in 2020, 2021. We passed out that money to over 280,000 businesses, the vast majority of which were small businesses, over half of which were 5 people or fewer. And that sense of urgency and that sense of purpose has continued, which I love.
Thanks, Kaaren. I think that sense of urgency we saw certainly was the ability to get stuff done that was difficult to get done before, because the kind of the shape of the priority with the customer in their mindset meant that kind of stuff which was a nice to have became a need to have. So, and I'm sure everybody would reflect some sort of similar feedback. Maja, anything on your side?
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about how the pandemic and the changes in the customer experience have impacted the change internally. And that singular focus that I'm hearing from everybody in our focus on providing whatever the customer needs is, I run a marketing organization, and one thing that has really become impetus for us is focusing on providing information, support, and advice to all of our customers, may they be small business, personal customers, recognizing that people were in almost very bifurcated situations. Either they were at home, employed and earning cash that's now just sitting in their accounts that they could, they would happily spend, but maybe they've got nothing to spend it on. And on the other hand, the customers that really needed our support. So we quickly pivoted the whole organization towards providing that proactive outreach. For us at BMO, humanity is at the core of what we do. We say that we are humans first, bankers second. And what COVID has made us rethink is how we really put that humanity first, but then go beyond the traditional ways of doing it. So when somebody cannot come into the branch to have the conversation and get the support, how do you quickly provide that same advice and support and reassurance to your customers in the ways that are now COVID safe? May that be the phone, video chat, different digital channels. So I would say the change on the customer experience that COVID has created has certainly given us lots of challenges, but lots of opportunities internally to pivot, rethink how we do things, become more agile. So I would say that there has been a lot of turn of challenges into opportunities that are hopefully here to stay.
Thank you, Maja. Let's move to the next question then. So where are the coming changes yet to be implemented? And what do you see customers wanting as we move into the new normal of a post-pandemic world? Maybe I can ask Kaaren if you'd like to kick us off.
Sure. I was looking at a research report that was done by Pew earlier this year, and about 4 in 10 Americans reported either having a job loss within their family or else having a loss of wages within that family, right? And while today, about 30% of people are feeling financially fine, there are about 20% who are not, right? And so when we think about this, many people are much more aware financially about the vulnerability that they or others may have, which I believe is helping them to focus more on their finances, right? And looking to see, are they spending in line with their values or not? So towards that end, we've actually been double down on Snapshot, which is a way to surface insights about your own personal financial health, right? And also surfacing more visibly the credit scores so that people are able to attend to that themselves. There is greater interest in this area, and I believe over time it's actually going to make us even more secure as a broader company, as a broader organization, as a broader nation.
I love your comment on security. I think that's such a big piece of security and trust that our customers want in us, and I think that was definitely obviously true, pre-pandemic, but I think post-pandemic, different changes, exactly as you highlighted through the Pew data, is not all of our customers are yet financially secure, and they want that feeling, and they want to trust and use their banks more. And I'd say some of that sentiment has gotten stronger. And then the other side is a lot of the needs of our customers have also remained the same, in that it's not that all of a sudden they now want a bank to be more transparent or more clear or simple experiences. I think it's just become so much more visible because now they're using our digital channels more, where in early days, getting a backup of a phone call was just harder, right? Everyone was impacted by COVID, couldn't be at the call centers. So they pivoted to, our customers had to pivot to digital use. And I think with that, it really puts a light in I guess both a good and bad way, right? A good way to say, look, we do have some really great features that our customers are using, but also a light on the fact that we do have a lot of opportunity to help our customers and have them understand our tools and products in a way that's not that only, a Citi banker or a Chase banker would understand, but really a way that an average customer, where moving money is not their day job, or, doing, activity in commerce is maybe not part of their day job. And so, I think the big shift is just all of us as an industry, I think, continuing to put the customer first, and really looking at the customers from more of a personal perspective and giving them the products they need when they want them in a way that they're able to action and use really easily.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Joe. Sorry, go on, Maya.
I was just going to add to what Jyoti has just said, because what we have seen is that, yes, we have been on that, let's call it omni-channel journey, and now it's probably overused word that nobody really cares for anymore. But that desire to have a holistic experience wherever the customer wants to reach and contact you or be in touch and get the advice or do some quick transaction. And what we have seen is the pandemic has really accelerated that transformation, I think, for the entire industry. Maybe what would have taken us 5 years, now it has taken us 1 year, because that was the only way to service our customers. And so to your question, Paul, I think that's here to stay. It is not going away. But that idea that we need to be better at serving our customers wherever they are is continue to be prevalent. Some people need support and hand-holding to feel that it's just safe to do things digitally. Other customers are, can I have everything digital? Give me all my insights in our BMO apps. We can give you an insight about your spending. We can tell you when you're about to run out of cash. We can tell you if we see that there's a change in your subscription and you may have 15 subscriptions and you forgot what you have. So we find that there's this large segment of consumers that want all this advice to be provided to them digitally and really be at their fingertips. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you still have the people that prefer to come into the branch to cash their check. And so I think it's upon the whole industry to really meet the customers where they want to be met in the way that they want to be met. And I think that is something to stay here. In marketing, there have been some significant changes and innovations that have happened through this with how we reach out to customers and serve them. I can share one example where we have used YouTube Director Mix. It is a new technology provided by YouTube where you can create various versions of the same video that is targeted to different audiences. So rather than creating 200 different videos, you start with one clip and then you can adjust it with the messaging relevant to the specific audience. And I would say that a pandemic has basically, we have data that there's 70% more viewership of videos, whether it's, digital video, TV. And so we had to basically meet the customers where they were. And that has really forced us to look into these innovations and also look for some pragmatic ways to create very relevant messaging for our customers.
Thanks, Maja. Just my perspective on it is I think that we've ended up with kind of an outcome where, we need to pivot towards a different expectation that the customer has, that we used to pigeonhole customers relative to their value. So, if you had a high value customer, the assumption always was, well, that high value customer is always going to want to see somebody, is always going to want to talk to somebody about anything and everything. Well, surprise, surprise, they actually want to do digital too. The way I see things is that kind of we need to kind of pivot ourselves to mirror what the customer wants versus, customer says, well, I don't really want to come in to see anybody. Then therefore you say, well, they must be managed through a contact center. I think that world's changed. Basically you can be managed however you want from the same location. If you want to see us, that's great. But, predominantly, if that's a remote experience, that's okay too. So I do think that kind of whole perception around, so it's not even a segments really, but assumptions that are based on very broad propositions. I think that shifts and that changes, and I'm sure that's here to stay. By the way, if nothing else, because we kind of educated the kind of more mature customer base that may not be in otherwise. Well, the millennials are growing up and they will take that space anyway. So it's, as I think a couple of you said, it's accelerated it, hasn't it, in many, many ways. So yeah, very, very interesting. Maybe we should go to the next question. Many banks have responded by increasing their offerings. Have any of you considered narrowing down and focusing in tighter instead? Maja, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, that is a really, really good question. What I think we have done is making sure that we provide relevant products and offer services to the customers for the needs that they have at the moment. It does mean that we have actually created and positioned our products to specifically address the situations that we have seen through COVID. I'll give you an example, a new credit card product that we had launched. The rewards were very, very relevant through the COVID situation, where we were rewarding the customers' everyday spend. So still that idea that they're earning, but we're rewarding their everyday spend as opposed to travel, right? The rewards that they get is for groceries as opposed to getting vouchers to be able to visit an airline lounge. So adjusting your products and services to the time and the needs of the customers, I think, is a key. In the digital world, one thing that we can now do, all of us, is provide very personalized experience to the customers. So in a way, no, we don't have to streamline our product offering. As long as we're putting forward to the customer the offerings that are relevant to them, we don't necessarily have to streamline the plethora. So if we can create digital experiences that are easy to understand, intuitive, relevant to the customers, that is probably where we would be putting most of our effort.
Thanks, Maja. Jyoti, maybe on payments.
Yeah, sure. And Maja, I think you said it perfectly in terms of streamlining is not necessarily about the number of products, right? You may still continue to have 10, 20, 30, whether it's digital products or credit card or, account types, et cetera. But it's about really how do we make sure our customers understand what they are and that they can use the right product at the right time. So in the payment space, what we built at Citi a few years ago is this concept of a payment hub, where the idea is really all of your payment money movement activities are all in one place, right? So if you have billers, or payees and things like that, is whether you're paying a person, whether you're paying a company for your bill, at the end of the day, you're paying someone, right? And how do we make that thinking really easy? Obviously, in building things like that, there's a lot of complexity. Everything has different rails and all of that we all have to work around. But at the same time, what I think our next really big focus area really has to be is how do we simplify all of that and put it into normal human talk, not, city banker or banker talk, where it's very easy for a customer to understand. So Maya, I couldn't agree with you more on the idea of it's not even about the number of products, but truly how do we make it easy? And I think, the other thing around this is also, we all need to continue to spend time looking at the data to help us make decisions. We do obviously customer research, we have all the different tools like Site Catalyst, et cetera, but how do we really continue to lean on the data to help us drive those decisions? While I just said we don't necessarily have to get rid of products to streamline, but maybe there is something we're not seeing, or we're seeing that two products are being used in the exact same way. And therefore, how do we make the decisions around what to focus on and what to drive forward? So those are the few thoughts. But again, I think your streamlining comment was spot on.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, maybe I'll just add, and then Kaaren, come to you. Yeah, we also looked not about necessarily reducing or increasing the product, but shifting and adapting. So, I mean, I'll give the example I can give is we're very focused on making sure we deliver the right experience for customers coming into the US for the first time, and we have a concierge service that's associated with that. Well, surprise, surprise, people were less interested in the restaurants and the wine. But what we were able to do was bring in the medical side, so people could understand better kind of what their risks and concerns were. There was an immediate opportunity for them to talk to somebody. So just shifting it, to talk more to their needs, and we were able to do that relatively easily, actually. And I think that's just the focus of mind in terms of the shift and the change that the kind of the customers were experiencing as well. Kaaren, I'm sure you've got a perspective.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, again, we're always thinking about the customer and how are we doing right by them, right? We want to be there for them in whatever manner they want us to be, which is why actually during COVID, we also expanded, frankly, our branch presence, right? Because we want to be where the customer needs us to be at the right time. But then I would say we also launched some new features, right? So, for example, we launched some budgeting tools, right? Which were very opportune, particularly given what was happening. We also launched a new digital assistant, but more importantly, we put a strong focus on how do we simplify so that our customers can spend less time doing the day-to-day activities and more time thinking about how what they're spending their money on aligns to their values. And we're actually really proud, and I had nothing to do with this because I wasn't there at the time, but we moved up to #1 in JD Powers for wealth management, and we moved up 18 points for the mobile app at #2. And so all of this effort clearly made a difference, which felt great to everyone involved.
Yeah, thanks, Kaaren. Let's move on now to the next question. How has this digital transformation affected your internal workings? What other departments have had to adapt on this journey? How have you successfully or not worked with them to achieve your goals? Well, that's a big question, and kind of think that covers more or less every aspect of what's working life like today for us all. So maybe Jyoti, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been all companies obviously are very keen on digital, and it's clearly important for many reasons as we've sort of articulated today. But I think the other thing that became very evident is probably it's more important than we even thought it was when the pandemic hit. And it's been on a couple of fronts. I think one is, as people said, now we've learned that we are able to move quickly. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so now this appetite to be even better about speed to market, about agile, because when we were going, through the early days of the pandemic, exactly like Karen's point, we were looking at, what can we put in market that can help our customers? We have, digital collections, we have paying your minimum due with your rewards, which were sped up in terms of launching due to the pandemic, and we realized we could do that, right? It was a lot of time and a lot of work from the teams, but we were able to speed up time to market. So I think that's one area that there's now a bigger push, and how do we do that, and how do we become more streamlined there? The other area is also around just focus and partnership with our lines of business, right? So oftentimes, and I'm sure many companies experience this, right? Sometimes we are the crazy digital team who say, and definitely when I started my time here at Citi about 7 years ago, was we were the crazy emerging payments team, quote unquote, and now it's emerged. Payments is here, it's here to stay. Digital payments aren't going anywhere. And now that's even more evident, right? That's even more and more important. And we're seeing that shift in ongoing and more aggressive partnership, I think, in that space, which has been, really fantastic to see, really how important this space has been. And, wallets and e-commerce is one where, for a long time, no one saw huge growth in Apple and Google Pay and Samsung Pay. PayPal was always around and very big, of course, for some time. And now obviously those numbers are through the roof, right? And so there's a lot more opportunity partnership, whether it's how do we look at them from a marketing perspective, how do we look at them from just making it easier for our customers to add their cards there. And so we're seeing a lot more of that focus through this year, going into next year as we're looking at our roadmaps. And same thing as we've said before in terms of payments, really trying to focus on what are those 3, 4, 5 things that can really drive change for our customers, right? And where do we really put our money to drive that change and give our customers the best digital experiences that they can have. And so we're really having a lot of those deep discussions. Again, we always talk about digital is obviously very important, but I think something like the pandemic has just accelerated it more than I've seen in my career in digital.
Thanks, Jyoti. Maja?
So what Jyoti has said, I think, is what we have all experienced. And I will say that it's probably been easier than before the pandemic because it was so clear that this is the path that we need to take. So full organizational alignment, a ton of work on connecting across the channels, so across digital contact center branches, ability to take the contact center calls in the branch, ability to serve customers in the contact center with what were typically branch transactions. Those kinds of things were not easy to execute, but very easy to align on and put that customer hat first and be super agile. What has been difficult, I'll speak to 2 aspects, one in marketing and one in the employee base, is that from the marketing perspective, as much as we can get lots of research and digital insights and experience things digitally, it has actually been hard to do the job when you're not walking the streets beside your customers every day. We all have been locked in our homes for some prolonged period of time. And it has been, typically I would spend lots of time in the branches, spending some time on the floor, getting to see how the customers are interacting. And that would just give me some kind of a sense of a feel for a customer. And as much as we have all tried to do that digitally, there is a bit of that humanity that I feel has been hard to replicate 100% in the digital ecosystem. And then the second part that has been difficult is that we have all leaned in for the customer. Our teams have said, yes, what does it take? What do I need to do? But we've been on this journey now for a long time for the customer and have asked our teams to go above and beyond and above and beyond and above and beyond and above and beyond. And nobody has taken the time off and everybody's working around the clock. I think the working days have gotten much longer than they were before. And it's been difficult to assess how are really our employees doing on each individual basis. Everybody has their own personal situation. Many people have little kids running around the house, people struggling with mental health. We check in with employees, we proactively check in more than we would have before, but I still feel it has been difficult to really know how people are doing. So in the post-pandemic world, I will very much look forward to being able to see people smile and sit in the same rooms and really know how our teams are doing. And I would say that's probably one of the hardest aspects and something that has been challenging.
Thanks, Maja. Kaaren?
Yeah, actually building on what Maja just said, we were joking the other day that, we've gotten to the point where some of our meetings now bleed into what used to be a commuting time. And as some people are choosing to go into that office, we're going to have to sort of reassess, right? Those buffers that we all held sacred for so long.
Yeah.
So I do think it'll be interesting for us to look back. I would also say that, one way in which we've changed, the company was already on this trajectory. COVID accelerated it, and now we're taking it to the next step. Previously, the teams have been organized by project teams, right? We have 1,000-some project teams. We've narrowed it down to 100 or so product teams. And now we're starting to really craft operating mechanisms across those end-to-end experiences that I believe, as Maja had mentioned, are much more omni-channel as well. And that's been important. The other shift is that we're starting to go beyond ease. We're really beginning to focus much more on the emotion, right? On being well-crafted, et cetera, et cetera. And all of this, I think, is terribly exciting. And again, we're leveraging that urgency, that sense of purpose that really emerged from the pandemic.
Thanks, Kaaren. I mean, just a couple of thoughts on my side. I think that, the things that I saw for sure was all the same things that kind of, I think the rest of you said, the sense of purpose and the sense of need to do the right thing by the customer and to make things work. I think what was gratifying was to see how that kind of permeated across the entire organization. So, and I'm sure I'm talking for all of you as well, that like working with risk partners in a way that we'd never worked with before, and the kind of level of engagement that you saw. It's interesting, that one, because I think in some ways the kind of shift towards the virtual world sometimes helped with the conversation there, because you could have more meaningful individual dialogue with people rather than kind of a room of kind of numerous individuals and trying to get to the right person to have the right conversation to ensure that you could kind of move things forward. And that really helped us, I think, doing the right thing by the customer at the right time and getting the right kind of balanced risk coming through. So I think that was really important. And we were able to launch a couple of things on the customer side, which I'm not sure we would have been able to do it in quite the same pace had that not been the case. I mean, the one that springs to mind to me immediately is we launched the remote ID and V, and the ability to onboard customers from kind of anywhere in the world, actually. And that takes a lot of coordination across markets, across kind of risk functions, across the digital teams, for people to get on board with kind of what the risks associated with it is. How do you make sure that the technology is going to work in the right way, and we got there. So that really just wouldn't have happened in a non-pandemic environment, I don't think, to be honest. But I also think it is super interesting when you think about how, like Maja, you were talking about the pressures that people have been under, and kind of how do you really get that sense of kind of what's happening. I think the biggest thing for me internally was the difficulty of not getting in a room with a bunch of people to kind of think things through and kind of create the kind of ideas that you need on that whiteboard. It just doesn't quite work on a kind of on a screen somehow, does it? It's really hard. I've been on a couple of those, and it doesn't really work where you're trying to pen things on. It doesn't work. So I think that's the piece that certainly from the business side. I think the kind of half an hour snapshots with staff, very difficult to kind of pinpoint true feelings and sense. Although I do feel the ability to have the kind of more individual conversations with people, for sure, on a regular basis has been improved with the technology. I think that I always think about the kind of half an hour kind of meeting room where it's 5 minutes waiting to get hold of the room, 15 minutes in the room, and then you've got somebody knocking on the door trying to get into the room at the end of it. I'm sure it's the same in every organization. So it's kind of like making sure that you've got the right balance there for people, because that's going to be important as we go forwards. And we all try to take, I think, a lot of the really good stuff that's come out of this sort of really difficult time, for the customers as well, because our organization has certainly changed, and there's a much more of a can-do attitude and approach to it. So I know we've got a little bit more time, so maybe just some final thoughts kind of round the table. So maybe Kaaren, would you like to go first?
Sure. I actually did see a question that was posed to us, which is, can we think about, would love to hear some final thoughts or predictions for how the world is going to change, or what the banking customer experience is going to look like in 5 years. Is that a good way to end?
That's a great question. Where you go.
Yeah. Well, I can't take credit for it. But what I would say is, when I think about 5 years from now, you're going to see a lot more confirmation as opposed to actually taking action to make conscious choices, right? And I think part of that is going to be really us balancing what is creepy versus comforting. That line has shifted tremendously in the last 10, 15 years. I know when we all first started using Google, it was sort of a shock to see Google tell us that it was time to go home, and it was going to take 7 minutes or however long it would be, right? That quickly, that went from creepy to comforting, right? So the same will happen in banking. I also think it's going to be a lot about how much transparency is enough, but not too much. Just like how much information is enough, but not too much. I also think that we're going to start to see banking being thought about a little bit differently, especially as we're moving even more into the gig economy. That is a whole different set of needs that many have not thought as deeply about as we need to and can. And then I would also say that it's going to be a lot more about helping people make informed decisions, as opposed to expecting them to learn about finances, right? It's going to be more set and forget. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Kaaren. And the one that strikes me, that really builds on what I think you had brought up, is that we often say how money is so very personal. And I would go even beyond that. It's not just personal, it's also very private. There's many things you would discuss with your friends and your brother and your mother and your neighbor. And often it's not your money. It is something that is so very personal and private. And I think that it will stay that way. And you're right, the line of creepy will change, but the desire of people to really have that personal element of money will stay. And so I think the importance of providing those personalized customer experiences will become even more important, because that's what the customers expect now, and they will continue to expect even more so in the future. But I could not agree with you more, Kaaren. The industry is in a very exciting space. Customer needs are changing, but there's so much opportunity, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, I couldn't be more excited to be in this space, and just seeing how it's changed so much on the payment side and how much it'll continue to change. A few thoughts I started to think about as that question popped up for us. One is, as I think about exactly like you said, the creepy part is also, I wonder how much of the information we'll be able to serve to our customers versus them having to come and get it. It maybe not a popular opinion. Maybe an opinion, I'll make one of those phrases, an opinion of Jyoti, maybe not an opinion of Citi. Statement is, in my opinion, we would be successful if customers don't have to come to our apps and online sites too often, where it's more of, hey, something has gone awry. You normally have $1,000, suddenly you have 300, heads up, now come and do something. Or, hey, every month you're paying this bill, no problem, it's being paid, something has happened. Then come in and take a look if something's happened. That's how I see a lot of it. If I think about, again, how I use certain tools, it's not like I go into Uber all the time just for kicks, right? Or Uber Eats all the time. When I've made an order, it'll just alert me if, the food is nearby or there's a delay. The other thing, and I can't help but sort of go into a cliche for a moment, kind of like we have joked about omnichannel and how that's the theme, but I do think there's going to be an element where, as we use our data and we get to know our customers even better, again, that fine line of creepy versus not, is we have to build more and more personalized experiences for our customers to manage their money, where I see banks can become that central place for them, sort of in the financial health, as we often talk about as well, is another big opportunity. And then in the payment space, which is where I spend most of my time, is One is real-time payments. We talk about a lot. The US is obviously behind other markets. I'm sure, Paul, you see it more than we do here in the States. Is that will probably change a lot of the way our customers move money, whether it's a trial deposit to add funds to an account. It can now be done in seconds versus waiting that 3 days, whether it's paying your bills online, or who knows what'll happen in store, right? Will merchants now start having QR and it's a real-time payment that they're going to get paid right away? These are all things that will be interesting for us to watch and see how, again, the customer and merchant adoptions goes. And I think overall, like everyone has said, this is a space in digital and customer experience that has a ton of opportunity. We've all made, just from what I've heard from all of you, I've been writing notes as you guys have been talking about some of the cool stuff you've been doing. I think as an industry, we've done really, really well by our customers, and I know we'll continue to do that going forward. So it's a fun ride for sure.
Thanks, Jyoti. And I love the creepy comment, Kaaren. I think it's so relevant. It's interesting. If I think about that from a kind of global standpoint, I think about the US. And of course, the whole concept of checks when you come to the US is like, it feels bizarre because you feel like you've come back in time. And then if you've been to sort of I think a couple of you worked in the European markets, you go to somewhere like Poland where they don't even know what check is. And so, but I do think that what the pandemic will have done is accelerated that kind of development in the US. So I think that's what makes the US even more exciting, because it's kind of forced a number of things that just would have taken so long to have happened, in any other environment, and the US will be the benefactor of that, I'm sure, in terms of adoption. I do think the whole piece around kind of your money not being a scary thing will change, and some of that will be about how you kind of accept the security. I think the security thing is going to be just so important to that. I think we will overcome. I think they'll get a point when people genuinely feel comfortable about the secure element to their money, because it's one of the things that's sort of closest to their hearts. And people still, as an example, feel that a mobile is less secure than a kind of PC, as an example. We still see that, but I think that as people get more comfortable and it's integrated, all the points that you raised around, actually you don't need to go to the app because it's nudging you to do the right thing at the right time. That saving is happening because we talk to you at the right time to ask you to do that. A lot of the technology is there already, of course, we know that. It's the adoption of that technology, I think, isn't it? And getting the data and people comfortable that data is going to help us to deliver that experience as we go forward. I think that's what's going to be super interesting. But yeah, exciting times. And I think particularly on the payment side, by the way, I think that's the one that we're going to see leaps and bounds of change, as we go over in the coming kind of few years. So thank you, everybody. I'm speaking on behalf of all of us. I think it was a great conversation. Enjoyed the time together.
Wow, thank you all so much. And a special thank you to Paul for moderating. This has been an awesome panel, and I know the audience is giving you a huge virtual round of applause. So thank you all for taking time to be with us today. For the audience, it's time for you to make your way to your next session. Along the way, make sure you accept your connection request and take some time to check out our amazing exhibits. Thanks so much, and we'll see you around.